Welcome, everyone, to the first ever Failure to Franchise 100 episode retrospective. Tonight, we celebrate not just these failures, but also the passion and perseverance to come under time and over budget, causing many to never work again. This show has come to highlight the unremarkable talents, bare-bones work, and some of the worst decision-making Hollywood has to offer. And to everyone involved, we say thank you for giving us plenty to talk about over the years. Now on to the show.
Welcome once again to Failure to Franchise, the show dedicated to some of Hollywood's most infamous mistakes, missteps, and misfires. This is Trev.
And I'm Chris, wearing my finest Hugo Boss with a touch of Gucci, House of Gucci, and just for such a special occasion as today.
You said House of Gucci. You summoned it. Can you please put in the clip? Can you do it for me, buddy?
You know what? If it wasn't our episode 100 spectacular, okay, fine.
Stop! You're going to make me. You're going to make me cry. Nobody has ever said that to me. Nobody.
Paolo, why don't you have your own line?
These are just mock-ups. I can't afford to get serious.
With your gift and your talent and your vision, are you kidding? Gucci needs no blood. Goodbye 1930s. Hello 80s. Huh?
You took the words right out of my guts.
Paolo, Gucci is coming.
See that thank you, buddy, and that's why we've been able to make it to 100 episodes.
Yes,
because we respect each other. We're friends, and you know how much I respect the Italian Americans and Italian Canadians.
Yeah, and not the Italian Italians, but yeah, sure.
Nah, not so much. That's why I love House of Gucci.
Wow.
But here we are, as your intro said, and as everyone knows from the episode, it is our 100th episode spectacular. Back on August 9th, 2020, Chris, a little podcast called Failure to Franchise started. We were just two young boys with a dream. I'm going to cut you off before you make the joke about my age.
Well, I was going to say now we're both old men.
We're certainly both
with broken dreams.
Yes, broken dreams, embittered, cynical, hate movies.
Yeah. It wasn't the pandemic that did that to us. It's this podcast.
Yeah, no. It's been almost exactly 4 years since we started this, which means even longer since I came to you with the idea for this podcast. Yeah. You stupidly agreed to it, and now here we are. We do our 100th episode spectacular. A look back at the previous 99 episodes. Well, 99 and change when you include some of our spin-off episodes and everything. But we're talking about the main feed here. And so we're going to give out some awards, talk about some of our faves, some of our least faves. And, most people would say, well, why didn't you do that for 101 since isn't it strange you're only looking at 99 movies? And I'd say, hey, shut up. This is the way we wanted to do it. 100 episodes sounds better.
Well, also, listener, if you said that, you forgot that we have an episode 0. So, there we go.
Yeah, well, that's true. But although episode 0 was just us talking about ourselves.
It is funny that we're going to do that for 0 and 100. So maybe, you know what? I take it back. We are idiots. Listener, you're correct.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking, you know what? I hate to burn this on the 100th episode. I wish this could just be all on topic. But sometimes we got to do a corrections corner, Chris. And I bring this up because you're going to love this corrections corner. Okay. Because I made a terrifying mistake last week in our last episode that was pointed out to me in my intro, which you didn't catch either. Not that I would expect you to, but a very embarrassing mistake for me. I said that I said that the third Star Trek film, Star Trek 3, was a Wrath of Khan, when of course it's Search for Spock. And someone pointed out, and you know what? I even went and looked at my script that I read when I record that, and I wrote the right title. I just said the wrong one when I was looking at it. I'm like Joe Biden. I can't even read a teleprompter over here.
The dementia is real.
You know what it is? It's just I always have Wrath of Khan on my mind, so it's like even when the words Search for Spock are in front of my eyes, I just can't help it.
Right. That is so funny. And a listener called you out, eh?
yeah, somebody pointed out like, hey, just so you know, and I was like, oh man, that's so embarrassing. And I know, like, we got buddies over at Open Pike Night, the Star Trek podcast. I'm sure they all listened and had a good laugh at me. But yeah, so apologies to all the fellow Trekkies out there.
If you want to correct Trev on many of his issues, at F2F Pod across all the socials, like us there, like us everywhere, rate, review, whatever you do. And yeah, I'm assuming that's where they go. Was it like Facebook, Twitter? What was it?
Yeah, I think it was. I can't remember. It was Facebook or Instagram.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. That's great. Love it. Yeah, keep those coming.
Because I don't check I'll be honest. I don't really check the tweets too much anymore. After Elon Musk made that into kind of more of a hellscape. So
right.
But yeah, Chris, before we get into our awards and a look back and everything, I guess we can kind of just set the table by just saying, here we are, 100 episodes in. We talked last time about how neither of us can kind of believe, we're at this point, and it feels like it's been 4 years. Sometimes it feels even longer. But I just want to ask, in general, how are you feeling right now about the show, about what we accomplished over the past 4 years? Are you having a good time? What I would most ask is, right now, if I asked you, how does this compare to what you thought the show was going to be when we first started thinking about it and when we recorded that early episode 0?
I think, well, you know what? Pretty quickly, I think we found our groove, if I'm being totally honest. I think in the first couple episodes, they're good. I'm obviously very proud of every episode we put together. I know I'm biased, listeners, but I genuinely don't think we've put out a bad product. I like objectively bad. I think we've always prided ourselves on sound quality and making sure things are well researched or well thought out. Minus and minus Trek trivia, obviously. But we have always done our best for this show, and I think pretty early on. Even just speaking for myself, I edit these episodes, and there's actually quite a bit of work to be put into an episode. I usually will tell people that from start to finish, if we watch, we got to watch the movie, we got to research the movie, research the behind the scenes, come up with our notes, come up with the scenes we want to include in the edit, then record, then the post-production process, all that stuff. It takes roughly 8 to 9 hours from start to finish to actually put an episode together and publish it for you. So it's like a work day every 2 weeks. So because it's that amount of time between the two of us to put something together, we always want to make sure that the quality is there. And I think early on we became very comfortable putting things together and deciding, hey, you know what? Instead of just describing clips all the time, let's start throwing the clips in. Or when we discuss score horror stuff, when we talk about our favorite orchestral compositions and whatnot, we like to underlay the music a little bit and try to bypass, the YouTube censors, the copyright strikes. But I think what I've liked with the show is we've kept the structure pretty much intact. The episodes are a really nice length for everybody, 90-ish minutes. And I think because we've stuck to a rule between the two of us of the quality, the timeline, the types of movies, whatnot, I think the quality has stuck really, really well over the 4 years. And then I know this sounds like I'm just kind of like filleting both of us right now, but I'm proud of the show. I really am. And, I love putting it together, and I think, we're only getting better at it, if I'm being honest. I think we're having more fun with it. We're having more lively discussions about it, and with the way the industry is evolving in the last 4 years, I think it's pretty cool to listen back and see how evergreen our episodes are, but also giving a glimpse of the point in time that we recorded. Like, listeners, if you go back to episode 1 to 5, me and Trev really love the MCU. And we are so sad that like the Infinity Saga is over, but we're like, oh man, we're so jacked to see what happens next. And then if you listen to like last episode, we're just not. And I think me and Trev wear our heart on our sleeves, and I think we come by it honestly. And This is now I'm rambling. Usually you do this, but I'm doing it now. And I think to answer your question in a long-winded way, I'm just very proud of the show and excited that we're here at episode 100.
Yeah, I echo that. I mean, I'm really proud that over 4 years we've maintained a bi-weekly schedule. You know, we
never missed an episode. Never missed
an
a
episode?
schedule. Amazing.
Yeah. That's great. As you said, we can talk even a little bit more in this episode about how we put the episodes together, if anyone is interested in that, because it is like we keep it on a bi-weekly schedule. You know, we not only in the release, but basically the way we do it as well. Where I believe both you and I don't watch the movie until after we've recorded the previous episode. You know, we're not like banking these or backlogging them, except in rare situations or someone's going on vacation or something. So it is a matter of within 2 weeks we both watch the movie. You compile a really well put together dossier of notes that you send to me. After we do the general record and you start editing, I go and write and record the intro to send to you. So yeah, it's like we're doing this every 2 weeks, and it's still a lot of fun. And what I'm most kind of surprised about, going back and quickly scrubbing through some early episodes, is how little the show has changed from the beginning to now. Like I said, we found a groove, and I think like we've gotten like a little better at some stuff, but we found a formula very early on of how we kind of wanted to break it down, and I think we realized it worked. And I think what's also been fun is you talked about like the types of movies we're doing and everything. You go back and look at the early episodes, and when we first started, I think there were some big movies we felt like we wanted to hit right away. And it's kind of like we weren't thinking about like the themes and like the sillier aspects of the show yet. And we're like, well, let's just get some of these. These are the movies that people kind of think about when they come up with when they think of this concept, and we kind of hit on them very quickly. And I think it's like kind of more fun like lately that we've been doing these like more, I don't want to say esoteric, but these strange themes and things, and like especially as we dive further into the very long and still growing list. So don't worry, folks. Neither of these ramblings are like, oh my god, are they like wrapping this up? No, we're not even halfway through the list yet. So don't worry about that either.
So we both have our Letterboxd links in your podcast app. So if you go there, you go to Trev's and you go to his lists section on Letterboxd. He has a list of all the movies that he keeps adding to it, and we agree upon, and we put them on there. Right now, as of today's date, July 8th is our recording date right now, but there is 278 films on there.
We've only done 99. So.
99, and also 120 of those I have not seen. so I'm in for a treat, I think, or we both are. But the list keeps on going, and again, it's the structure, like you keep saying, that the show hasn't really changed at all. There's some things that we've been looser on, like in the very beginning. I remember us talking about how let's try to rewrite, pitch a sequel, pitch what the franchise would do, and I found that it was fun in the beginning, and then I think maybe that became a little bit too much like work. And I think
it's also just that there's only certain movies I want to do that for.
Totally.
If I watch a movie and I think of what the sequel would be, then I'll bring it up. But to try and be like, I don't know, what would V.I. Warchowski 2 be?
Trev, I swear,
can't compute.
I swear to God, I was about to mention that movie. Holy shit. Anyway, that's so funny. But yeah, no, I don't care about pitching the next, most of these.
yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been fun, and 4 years. It's crazy. I know we joked about that the last episode recording, and I think what you said was the most funny was that you couldn't believe it took 4 years to get to episode 100. I remember when we first started this and we decided to do the bi-weekly thing. We had discussions of like, maybe we will start to do it weekly. And like I said, listeners, we actually put a lot of work into these, and we also have careers and lives. And we realized that is impossible. It is absolutely. If we started the weekly thing, man, I think we would have quit. I think it would have burnt us out.
I think the only way you and I could possibly do weekly, and this would not be like even an option for us until we got way more listeners and we're in the realm of wanting to do like Patreon and stuff, which we're not doing now because we like that you get to listen to this for free and everything. We also just don't even have, we don't have a listener base to make it worth it for us probably. But
no.
Like if we could do like just every other week, we just do a shoot the shit episode. Sure, that'd be fun, because this is a great opportunity for us to just get to talk to, since we live in two different countries and everything, and this is our catch-up time as well.
Totally.
But sure, I would record like a bi-weekly, just, hey, what else is going on in our lives episode. But yeah, I can only, these movies, man, I can't do one of these a week,
we have we have many themes lined up. We have a notes app that we share with each other, and we'll add and approve the theme months or theme seasons. And I couldn't imagine us doing back-to-back, week-to-week, Nancy Drew Novembers.
Yeah. Or even like we have got like coming up, you know, to give a peek ahead at some of the themes we're talking about. SN Hell, which is all the failed SNL movies. Can you imagine having to just crank those out week after week after week?
Oh my God.
You know?
Oh my God.
So these 2 week breaks are very, very nice for some of these, which isn't to say we've hated all these movies as we're going to talk about in this episode. This is, you know, obviously we've had a lot of winners too. And that again is the joy of the show, is not quite, you know, obviously I think this is what you and I knew at the very beginning, but I love that the show has kind of reiterated that, that just because a movie is a failed franchise starter, which is the point of our show, doesn't mean it's a failure of a movie. Sometimes they are, but sometimes other factors led to it or whatever, and we like to talk about that. But there's been plenty of these that we do wish had been franchises, of course, or just even if they're not, they're still great singular films. So yeah, it's been nice to just get to, you know, have a wide breadth of films to talk about. You know, not maybe like as wide a breadth of genre. Obviously, most of the movies we talk about are kind of in the action, sci-fi, comic booky realm.
Genre films.
Yeah. But, you know, still, it's still been fun to look at both the good and the bad of cinema.
There's a theme month coming up. Well, we don't know where it'll be, and I think we might have to split it up because there's lots. But video lame movies instead of video game. What else is in here? Misguided hybrid. That's where we're doing like 2D or 3D. You know, like a Yogi Bear.
Yeah. We've got like 2 months dedicated to movies based on Robert E. Howard properties, where we'll be looking at, you know, giving peeks ahead now. We'll look at Red Sonja, Call the Conqueror, Solomon Kane, and the Jason Momoa Conan movie.
Can I say that the theme month, what that's called?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, everybody, that's the Lamentations of Their Winter.
Yes.
And that one I'm very proud of. So look forward to that. Maybe not this year, but probably next.
I think that's really good, but Chris, because you name most of these.
Right.
I recently floated one to you that I'm still fighting for. That
It has not been approved yet.
It's not been approved, but I'm still fighting for it. I think it's great because I love a sweaty title. But I think your actual masterpiece is another one we haven't gotten to yet. But first, I'm going to read the movies, and then I want to say the title, even though you came up with it, because I'm so proud of you as a. This is like your finest moment, my friend.
Okay.
We will look at the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes, Italian Job, Mile 22, and Spencer Confidential, and we will of course call that Mark Wahlberg and the Yucky Bunch.
That really is my masterpiece. That is a good one.
So.
Oh my God, that's great. Sometimes I surprise even myself. So I guess let's start off on a good foot here. Not that we haven't been, but you know, we are celebrating the show and our friendship, and let's jump into some of our top films. Doing this show again, we've done 99 of them now, and there has been a few bangers in there.
Yeah.
So Trev, first, I guess let's go through your 5 and then let's go to me. Let's do that. You 5 and then my 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think you want me to do descending order, starting at 5?
You know, to be honest, I did alphabetical. I didn't pick my absolute fave.
Okay. Well, I ranked mine, but I'll do descending order. But yeah, I mean,
Sure.
these are. I mean, I love all of these, and there's, you know, this is actually tough for me, and I could do the thing where I throw out some honorable mentions, but instead, I purposely left a couple out of the top 5 and maybe picked 2 others, you know, over them because those ones are going to get some other love and some other awards later. And I was like, well, these other ones might not. So here's the 5 I came up with. My number 5, and again, this isn't a list of what I think are the best movies we've done, but more the ones that are my favorites.
Sure.
And the ones I feel like I could see myself just constantly like kind of returning to. And a lot of these I already did even before this was a podcast, you know. So my number 5, as crazy as this might sound, and I don't know if you're going to roll your eyes and our listeners are going to roll their eyes or their ears, however it might be, but my number 5 is Punisher Warzone.
Wow.
Just one of my all-time just like favorite schlock action movies, and especially coming after we did the three Punisher movies, and even though the Thomas Jane one was kind of nice, like surprise to be like, oh yeah, I like this way more than I thought. The Dolph Lundgren one was a bit of a snoozer, and the Thomas Jane one I liked but still had problems with. And then to end on the high note of Punisher Warzone, which is just a movie I have rewatched so many times and just brings a big smile to my face. It's total junk, I get it, but it's like my kind of junk.
Sure.
So I just wanted to highlight it because like that's the thing I like about this list too, is it's kind of all over the place in terms of what I consider junk and what I consider actually really, really good. Speaking of what I consider really, really good, and very happy to see the world finally starting to catch up with me a little bit more in recent years. My number 4, Speed Racer. To me, just like an absolute masterpiece that didn't get its due at its time, and it's great to see finally it getting more and more of a following as the years go along, and people really getting with what the Wachowskis were vibing with that movie, and just like pure joy on screen, and also just breathtaking visuals. It's a good time. My number 3, one of my favorites. This is one of the movies I was most excited for you to see, for us to get to, and for us to do, and that would be Streets of Fire. Just a banger of a movie I've been in love with since I first saw it. One of my favorite 80s films. Just to me, like one of those like pure cinema movies, right? It's kind of simple in story, but man, the visuals, the music, the colors, some of the performances, maybe not the lead one, but some of the performances, the songs, which just get stuck in your head forever. The beauty of young Diane Lane. It's just like everything is there for you. And from one of my favorite filmmakers, Walter Hill. Okay, now here's where people might be kind of surprised, because my number 2 is the movie that has led to something we forget to do, as much as we should, but our ultimate test of like what is this movie like up there among the best, but it's actually going to be my number 2, and that is Dredd. This is a movie that of course led to you and I creating the Dredd test, right? Where we say, does this movie pass the Dredd test? Is this as good as as Dredd? And I still think that's a great high water mark, because obviously these 1 and 2 are really, really close for me. But yeah, Dredd is... I will say this, even though it's not my number 1 here, this is still the movie that today, if I could get any sequel made to any of these, I would still pick Dredd, because I still think Karl Urban is ready to go. I still think it's a damn shame more people didn't see this movie. I just still think this is like a great, modern John Carpenter movie that pays such excellent homage to the source material, the Judge Dredd 2000 AD comics. Such a huge improvement over the Sylvester Stallone version, which we also looked at and did not make this list. But yeah, love Dredd. So that's my number 2.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I think we both agree Dredd was the better of the 2. I think
by the way, Judge Dredd is not on my list. Okay.
But my number 1, even years before we even started this podcast, years before I knew you, Chris, this was already one of my favorite movies. It's one of my most watched movies of all time. You've probably already figured it out. My number 1 is The Fifth Element.
Yeah, I knew it.
Yeah, there's just no doubt. It's just a movie I've been obsessed with since I first saw it in the theater, and continue to like come back to it as often as I can. As well documented, Milla Jovovich is my number 1 crush of all time. This is definitely a big part of that growing up, but it's also, still very fun Bruce Willis, the crazy sci-fi visuals. Again, kind of a simple story, but just told so incredibly through the visuals and the action, and even just like the strange cinematic choices of like never having the hero and villain even meet on screen. The great villain performance of Gary Oldman as Zorg, wild characters, beautiful costumes, cool production design, kind of still like everything I love about sci-fi, right? Just big ideas done, big, bold, and colorful. So yeah, that's my top 5 movies I could rewatch at any given moment, and that's why I picked them.
Awesome. I'm so glad you mentioned your Milla Jovovich crush, lifelong crush, because listeners, my masterpiece of the theme months is the Mark Wahlberg and the Yucky Bunch, which is upcoming. But Trev's masterpiece of naming theme months was a 2-month event dedicated to Milla Jovovich, which was Milla Jovovich.
Yes.
That was phenomenal. So have to give you props there.
Thank you.
Love all 5 of your picks, by the way. No arguments here. So my 5, again, I didn't really put them in an order. I like the alphabetical order for me personally. It's like choosing between your kids, and I don't have kids, so it makes sense. I'm also going to cheat a little bit, and the reason why I'm going to cheat here is because, as a lot of listeners know, I rate my movies on a 4-star system, right? And with every episode that we publish, I log them on Letterboxd with our link to the podcast episode, and I give my personal rating, star rating on there. And the tag is failure to franchise. So you can go check those out on my profile. Anyways, I gave 6 movies 4 stars. So I thought the number was close enough that I hope you're okay with that I can name the 6 movies that I gave 4 stars to over our legacy of 100 episodes.
I'll allow it.
Okay, great. Good. I was going to kill one right away if you said no. So you had the power.
I do want to, I'll allow it, but then I want to know which one you were going to kill.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Definitely. I know which one to kill. Okay. So the first one on the list is exactly this. It's Dread. Dread is the Dread test. I mean, it's iconic 2-hour podcast. And yes, I couldn't agree more. Everything you said, I echo. Dread is just an action masterpiece. And it's bloody, it's gory, the sound is incredible, the look is great. You know, we both saw it in 3D in the theaters when it first came out, and the 3D effect was incredible with the slow-mo drug, all that shit. But it's one of those 3D movies that works at home as well.
Yeah.
So,
although, can we get a better Blu-ray of it, please?
Yeah.
That transfer, not very great.
Yes, it's not great. But Dread is just badass in every way. The next one, Fifth Element, of course. I'm right there with you. Fifth Element is just, again, another, I'm going to use the word masterpiece a lot, but it is. Like, the Fifth Element speaks to me even as a kid. When I saw that movie as a kid, many, many times, burned into my memory is Mila Jovovich being wrapped in those bandages, and, created maybe who I am today. Anyway, love that movie so much so that I don't think I said this on mic, but after that recording, I was like, man, I should really buy Fifth Element. Like, I swear, I was like, I just got to go buy it. So I went on eBay and I bought the Blu-ray, the one with the nice case. And then I got it. And then I went to go put it in my shelf. And guess what? I put it right next to my DVD of the Fifth Element that I also own. That doesn't happen much with me, but now I have
but
two
you don't
copies.
You don't want the Fifth Element on DVD. Come on.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like, when I watched it for the podcast, it was on Netflix. So I got to watch it in, that 4K streaming transfer. But alas, I now have it in the OG DVD from whenever that, what is it, 97? What was the timeline on there?
Yeah, 97, 96, I don't know. Yeah. We both love it. And we're like, we don't know what year it came out, but
Trying to highlight it, doesn't work. Okay, you know what? Late 90s.
I will tell you this. I think I said this on the podcast. It was one of the 2 first DVDs I ever owned.
Oh, cool.
My first 2 DVDs were Fifth Element and Batman and Robin.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. My first DVDs... Well, I know my first DVD was Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That was the one, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember I bought that at London Drugs. For all you Canadians out there, London Drugs.
Now, because you bought these in Canada, was it like your Fifth Element Blu-rays that say like the Fifth Element, Le Fifth Element underneath? And then
You know what? Let me double check. Hold on. I'm right behind me. Can you hear me, listeners?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Let's see here. Wow. You know what? No Francais.
Okay, well.
Wow. The Ultimate Edition is not sullied. Wow.
Not that we don't love our French listeners.
Well. Anyway, that's funny. Okay, so the next one on the list is it's very new to the podcast. Miami Vice.
Yeah.
I fucking loved Miami Vice. In that episode, Trev coined it Miami Vibes, and that's exactly what it is. I can't wait to rewatch that movie over and over again. I just thought, again, the vibes of it, the performances of it, the look of it, the feel of it. I was just like, man, this is my mood for movies. You know what I mean? So just loved Miami Vice. The next one, Source Code. Love Source Code. That was one of my favorite films of 2011. And I hadn't watched it in probably a decade. So when it came up on the podcast for Jake Gyllenhaal, it was really emotionally affecting for me. I love Michelle Monaghan as well, and it was just a really beautiful story, and I felt myself overcome with emotion at the end of it, and I was just like, man, this is a true banger of a film. And yeah, I absolutely love Source Code. The next one is probably, I'm gonna say, the favorite of the bunch. This is my number 5, but technically my favorite, and has potential to be in my top 10 movies of all time. And you know that's Speed Racer. Speed Racer is just a total chaotic, beautiful, colorful masterpiece in every way, shape, and form. I've seen it so many times. I was one of the very few that saw it in IMAX when it first came out for that week before it was pulled. And Speed Racer is a movie that I show people. It is one that I say, come over to my house for my TV setup, my sound setup, everything. During the pandemic, I bought this. What was it? This Philips Hue lighting system that's all around my TV, and it reacts with the colors that are being projected on the screen, and it's just one of the most eye-popping, sensational films that I've just ever seen. And every time I watch it, I tear up. And that last montage of, I don't want to spoil it, so go watch it, but the last 5 minutes of that movie is it's what's that word when it's kind of like out of body, it's it's almost like a religious experience. Yeah. And just the one last one I'll say, the one is Streets of Fire. Streets of Fire is another movie I gave 4 stars to. Trev was very excited to show me that movie, and Streets of Fire I just recently watched with my sister, and she was so gobsmacked by it and just loved it. So much so that she doesn't usually listen to our podcast, but she went back to listen to that episode for it and just loved Streets of Fire. What a great, cool, again, another type of vibe, but it's timeless. It's a timeless film.
No, I've introduced that movie to plenty of people, and I've never had anybody not like it. It's just like I'm sure those people exist, but they're bad people. They're evil people.
Can't trust. Trump hates Streets of Fire.
Yeah, yeah, I guarantee you that's true. But yeah, no, it rules. So I was very happy. That was one the podcast could have ended if we had done that episode. And you're like, I don't know, I think this is junk. So,
yeah.
Thank God that didn't happen.
To answer your original question, the one I would have had to, assassinate, probably Source Code. Yeah. Even though it emotionally affected me, I'd probably just have to get rid of that one. But
that's interesting. I love that that's in there because that's I like that movie, but it wouldn't be anywhere as high for me. But I think that's awesome that that movie speaks so much to you. So that's cool.
Of all this podcast,
that's your Punisher Warzone.
Totally.
That's how I go with Punisher Warzone. It's just so emotional, and I'm crying while watching it.
Oh, you're crying every time you hear Jigsaw's accent. That's
Looney Bin Jim comes on screen, and it's just the emotions just swell.
It's funny because I said that I buy movies from this podcast every once in a while. I've only ever bought 5. I bought Miami Vice, Source Code, Streets of Fire, which also Streets of Fire, they released a 4K Blu-ray so soon after our recording of that episode, which is amazing. And then King Arthur and The Karate Kid. I bought those movies. So okay, let's talk some shit.
It's not all great.
Let's talk some shit. Okay, so we picked our 5 bottom movies. I hate all 5 of these movies. So, Trev, you go first, and then I'll go.
All right. So again, I'll do these in descending order, but these are just all to me really shitty. And here's where there will be some disagreements here, Chris, because I did have to pick some that I know you will think I'm crazy for putting this low, and then others I don't think maybe you will. But my number 5 is one that I know I reacted to. I'm doing the wrong order. My number 5 is one that I know we're going to disagree on. But to me, this is just a movie that I've never liked. To me, it symbolizes the worst tendencies of summer blockbusters, and that is Wild Wild West. I cannot vibe with this movie, and I think for me, so a lot of this will come up again. Is sometimes for me the most frustrating thing is wasted potential. And when you talk about, Will Smith and Barry Sonnenfeld back together again after Men in Black, which to me is one of the best summer blockbusters of all time, and doing a very similar kind of thing, right? Like a sci-fi action comedy. I also love Kevin Kline, who is like, kind of the de facto Tommy Lee Jones in this. I love the idea of merging the Old West with like sci-fi elements. Everything on paper seems like it should work, and I find the movie like unbearably boring. So it's just such a bummer for me, and that's why I put it here. My number 4 is another one that I think I reacted to much more negatively than you did. But again, something, and this comes up a lot in our podcast. One of the things I really butt up against is like not just disrespect of like source material, but taking source material and just like completely ignoring what's special about it.
Sure.
And that is why Gem and the Holograms bothered me so much.
Totally.
Where you took this like crazy sci-fi cartoon and just turned it into the same trite, pat, young rock band gets famous and then learns that fame isn't all it's cracked up to be drama that had nothing new to say, and we'd just seen so many times before, and in fact wasn't even the best version of like this kind of movie. We talked about how like basically Josie and the Pussycats was what this movie actually should have been, but instead they sapped out all the humor. The songs were bad, and it was just like, why is this even based on that cartoon? So it just felt really cynical and hollow to me, and it doesn't surprise me that it made what I think $7 at the box office. My number 3, I have a really hard time with bad comedies. This is well documented in our podcast, and that's why I had a really rough time with Mordecai. The Johnny Depp has a mustache, isn't that funny? Private Eye comedy or detective. I don't even know what he was. I can't remember, and I don't want to remember because I'll never watch it again. I just remember being very, very upset while I watched it. My number 2 is probably, I won't even say probably, I mean, I think it is the worst thing we've ever watched, but there's a reason it's my number 2. And that is Maximum Ride. You and I both said when we watched this that we didn't even consider it a real movie. We were just like, what is this? It felt like a YouTube fan film given like, feature length, gain sentience, it won't stop growing, and we're all suffering for it. Just embarrassing. It was really, really embarrassing. And to know, as I think we said at the time, it made me feel really sad that there's like this really successful series of books that has this legion of fans, and this is what they have to deal with, which has come up a few times for our podcast. But this is clearly the worst example of it because this just felt fake,
Totally.
And then my number 1, so this I don't like, again, I think this is probably objectively maybe a little bit better of a movie than Maximum Ride, but as I said when we did this episode, because I think this came not too long after Maximum Ride, I said the reason I hated this more is because it should have been better, because you have an actual budget and because you have actual performers and actors, and you're just like, well, Maximum Ride was bad, but it was made for like $8 and had nobody in it. Whereas The Love Guru
I knew this was your number 1.
There was no you just remember how much I hated this when we did this episode. This movie drove me insane. It was a movie that, as much as I love, Austin Powers and Mike Myers on SNL, Wayne's World, of course, both Wayne's World films are favorites of mine. I love So I Married an Axe Murderer, but I watched Love Guru and literally did say, I don't think Mike Myers should ever be allowed to make another movie. Not if this is what he's getting up to. So that movie just made me want to pull my hair out, and I just could not take it. So those are my bottom 5.
I get it. Again, you're not going to get much argument from me. We have these debates on the podcast proper on those episodes, and I think that's what makes it fun. We are not afraid to voice our opinion to each other.
Well, and everyone has their things, right? As has come up on our podcast before, and you've brought it up, and it even came up in our last episode. I mean, you are generally more forgiving of comedies than I am, and I'm generally more forgiving of horror than you are.
Totally.
So it's just like everybody has their things, But,
yeah. Absolutely. Okay, my bottom 5. I actually did rank these ones because it was easier for me.
Yeah.
Again, I post everything to my Letterboxd, and 2 of 5 of these movies I gave 0 stars to, and 3 of them are 1-star films. So we'll start at the 1 stars and work our way down. Number 5, I put Son of the Pink Panther. Honestly, it's because I have zero recollection in the slightest of watching it, editing it, talking about it. Dude, I could not tell you a single scene or line that happens in that movie.
It made me feel bad back then. It still makes me feel bad today that I think this is like the only Pink Panther movie you've seen, which is so like such a bummer.
Hey, I used to watch the cartoon.
Yeah.
So at least there's
kind of different, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But no, it is just, again, bad, and I couldn't even tell you why. I just know that I
Which is weird, because otherwise you're a huge Roberto Benigni fan.
You know what? I love Life is Beautiful. I think that movie is excellent, but he's a little much.
He's a little much.
He's a little much. The next one on the list is Artemis Fowl.
I purposely, this would have been on mine. I left it off because we didn't really review it. That was my rationale. But you and I have seen it, so yes.
Mine was because I watched it once, despised it, and tried to watch it twice and couldn't. So this movie's just awful. It's awful in every way. We do so many of these YA book series movies, and you know what, a lot of them are very samey, and there's a structure to them that I think annoys us, but this one was just, it was everything wrong with that genre. Soulless. Oh, absolutely soulless. That we used to have COVID movie nights for me, you, and a couple friends via Zoom, and this is one that I mean, I usually drank a lot during those. and I think I drank a bottle of wine while watching it, and it was still bad. And I think that tells you a lot.
Congrats to Colin Farrell making Chris's top 5 and bottom 5.
And I guess we both have Kenneth Branagh in the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have Wild Wild West and I have...
Yes,
he made Artemis Fowl. Some would say he didn't. But anyway. The next one on the list, Fan Four Stick. Fan Four Stick, the Fantastic Four remake, reboot, whatever. I despised it the first time I watched it. Me and my friend went to a hockey game, and it was an incredible time, and it was so fun. I rarely get to see him, and we just had a great night, and we came back to the house. We're like, let's watch a movie. Let's watch something. And we're like, oh, you know what? Fan Four Stick is out. Let's give it a chance. And even after a night of partying and having a great time, that movie bummed us out so hard and completely killed the vibe. And then when we did it for the podcast, it's actually one of my most proud podcasts we put together, by the way, is the Fan Four Stick one. But I just can't stand Josh Trank. and that movie was just, again, this guy, I guess he was trying something, but completely losing the plot. And I don't know, just everybody was not on their A game with that one, and it's just a turd for me. Next one on the list is your number 2 spot, Maximum Ride, for exactly the reasons you said. That movie is not a movie. Right before we recorded, my sister-in-law was over, and I said, I was compiling my list a little bit, and I was like, yeah, Maximum Ride's on my list. And she goes, oh my God, like I love those books. And I said, well, you're going to hate the fucking movie. So the movie's junk. It's made by YouTubers that don't know what they're doing. And great episode. It's fun to talk about, but again, not a movie. And my number 1, with another 0 star, is the embarrassingly bad Spawn. Spawn, man, I've seen Spawn too many times. It was one of those R-rated movies that you get, you watch as a kid. Well, my age as a kid. And thinking it's cool and badass. And then you grow up and you're like, what's that fat clown saying? And it's an embarrassment, is that movie. And John Leguizamo, I don't know if he'll ever be able to live that one down, truly. And I even compiling that one when I was editing it and putting that montage of his lines. Oh no.
The CGI hell scene's pretty good though, right?
Pretty good. Great VFX. Yeah. Anyway, that's my bottom 5, and I hate them all. I hate all 5 of them.
I still maintain the first half of Fantastic Four is pretty good, but okay.
I know, but some people, wrong. Okay, let's talk a little bit more positively again. I like how we've structured this, by the way. We thought we would give some props to our favorite performances of Failure to Franchise history. So all 3 of us have... Oh, sorry. I can't even speak. Both of us have 3 top performances of the podcast. Trev, take it away.
All right, so here's just a brief caveat here. I'm going to leave one off, but I want to give it a special mention, and that is Kevin Conroy as Batman in Batman: Mask of the Phantasm.
Yep.
A movie I love, and like I think he's like arguably the best Batman of all time. But because it is just a voiceover performance, I'm gonna play. I don't know if it's considered playing it fair. Not that voiceover isn't a real art, and we talk about it all the time. How we actually love that as an art. But I decided to just like give him a special mention here and say like yes, he rules as Batman, and Mask of the Phantasm is another great performance from him, as he always did in the cartoon and video games. But my actual three, this was really tough because actually going through the list, there's actually a lot of really good performances in these movies, and performances like that range from what I think are actually like legit good performances to just like fun performances, right? Like, well, I not that this would be anywhere near my list, but when I say that, I'm talking about something like Dominic West in Punisher Warzone, who's just who knows the movie he's in and goes for it, right? But I decided to go a little different on I try to pick three that I think are really kind of strong. So my number three is Jackie Chan in Karate Kid. Look, Jackie Chan is my all-time favorite movie star. I'm sure this was talked about when we did this episode. But obviously a big part of that is mostly for his willingness to just destroy his body in crazy, inventive, comedic action scenes. And I love that this movie, not that it was the first time it ever happened, but it's one of the best examples of really letting him dive into a character and act. And he's just heartbreaking in this movie. I think it's a fantastic performance. He's like the beating heart of this movie. I mean, like even Jaden Smith is surprisingly really good in the movie, but the true beating heart of it is Jackie Chan, and he's what elevates this into being a real pleasant surprise of a film. It didn't make my top 5, but that Karate Kid remake rules and is better than the original. Come at me, Karate Kid fans. My number 2, maybe this is my bias showing. Again, this goes back to the list, but my number 2, this is what I mean for just a committed kind of performance that is just so crazy, but the performer is really committing to it, is Milla Jovovich in Fifth Element. I just think it's an iconic performance, right? And I think it's a kind of acting. You can say like, well, I can't believe Trevor picked that, but how many actors would be able to pull this kind of performance off? To speak almost entirely in this made-up language, to fully commit to it, to not worry about looking silly, which a lot of actors do. As you said, to be like half naked through the first whole part of it, and like not worry about that, but to just really sell like the physicality of the part and the humor, the comedy, the toughness. Later the tenderness. I really think it's like a really, really impressive performance. So you could say like, oh, he's just picking it because it's Milla Jovovich and he's always loved her. But no, I think it's like legit, really strong work in a genre that doesn't always get that kind of attention. And my number 1, this is a movie that came really, really close to making my top 5, but I knew I was going to give this like my favorite performance. So I was like, you know what, I'll just save it for that. And that is another comedic performance, but again, one that I think is just like speaks to the pure strength of the performer. And that's Ryan Gosling in The Nice Guys. I just think, we've, in recent years, we've been reminded of what a strong comedic powerhouse Ryan Gosling is. But, this is one of the ones that to me just like cements that. The Nice Guys, again, one of my favorite movies we've done on this. And really, him and Russell Crowe are both great in it. But he's like the highlight. He's the standout for me. Just, again, being willing to, even though he's got that cool, he's obviously super handsome. He's got the drive kind of hipness when he needs to. But he's also willing to just be silly and play a total dipshit and like a total fool, and he's great. I just think he's a big part of what makes that movie so infinitely rewatchable to me. So yeah, he's probably it's tough, but I think he's maybe I'm giving him number 1. So I say he is my favorite performance among all these. Nice.
Okay, so I mean, you're gonna agree with basically everything I want to say. So my top 3. Starting at number 3, Jackie Chan, Karate Kid.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, it's just another side of Jackie Chan that you never really get to see. And again, I'm an emotional guy, and when these performances get to that level of being very emotional, it does get me. I can be a wimp. I know you're surprised, listeners, but Jackie Chan really gets me, or I get Jackie Chan in The Karate Kid. He was just so good, and I agree. That is a better movie than the original by country mile. Mm-hmm. Number 2, I actually picked one of your, you said Dominic West, but you didn't really pick him. I picked Al Pacino in Dick Tracy.
I had him in my long list here. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Al Pacino and Dick Tracy is outrageous. His makeup is outrageous. His performance is outrageous. That whole movie's outrageous, and I just loved it so much. And yes, it's more of the Pacino, the meme-ified Pacino, sure, but in that film, he's pitch perfect. He gets it. You are watching a cartoon character on screen, and it just plays to all of his strengths as a performer of being just an absolute crazy person. So awesome villain. And my number one.
Can I guess your number one?
Yeah.
It's gotta be Blarp. Blarp from Lost in Space.
It was actually Lacey Chabert. No, Ryan Gosling, of course.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling.
I love that. Yeah.
Crazy, right? Ryan Gosling, The Nice Guys. That is a performance that people either just haven't seen or forgot about until Barbie. And when he took over that movie from Barbie, me and you were sitting in the bleachers being like, yeah, no, we know. He did this already. And The Nice Guys is just an expert level physical comedian at the top of his game. Like, he's such a good comic actor, is incredible. I'm a big fan of The Fall Guy. I thought he's so good in that. Every time Ryan Gosling does his deadpan comedy, I'm dead. It's so funny.
I could watch him struggle to open a bathroom stall for 2 hours.
Oh my God. Amazing. I did have 2 honorable mentions. Will you allow me the pleasure of telling you?
Yeah, and then I'll do one. So go ahead with your
Great.
2, and then. Yeah.
There are also cheats within the cheats, but my first honorable mention is the entire comedic cast of Sky High. Bruce Campbell, Cloris Leachman, Jim Rash, Dave Foley, Kevin McDonald. That group of comedic actors really tapped into something to make that movie special and fun, and another movie that a lot of people slept on. And I think Sky High is that family-friendly X-Men movie or property that I think we've all been kind of waiting and hoping for. And the comedic cast of that is so good. Oh, they're so good.
I don't know how much truth there is to it, but there's been I don't know if you saw, Chris, there's been a little bit of like renewed stories about some like maybe a Sky High series in the works at Disney Plus. I consider that if that's true, that's the F2F bump. That's what that is.
100%. We rolled this Matrix, and you're welcome. The other honorable mention is the parents of Speed Racer. John Goodman, Susan Sarandon, make me cry every time. Just earnest performances and a family unit like that you rarely see on film. So you go.
Yeah, so I agree. They're great, and like we said for Jackie Chan with Karate Kid, they're the heart of that movie too.
Yeah.
Especially good. I mean, Goodman is just my other, I already gave Kevin Conroy's one honorable mention, but since you took 2, I'll take one more. And this is a really like out of left field pick maybe, but that's what I kind of wanted to do. When I was putting together my long list for it, I was like, well, I want to highlight a crazy choice and maybe something from like one of the movies that otherwise wouldn't be thought of here, and that is Lori Petty in Tank Girl.
Oh,
which, I believe you said it when we did the episode. She was Harley Quinn before Harley Quinn, before Margot Robbie did this. Like, she's the reason to watch the movie. The movie's so-so, right? We both had issues with it. I think I like it a little bit more than you, but I admit it's a very flawed movie. But she is just, again, she's so committed, and she's just such a like crazy, chaotic powerhouse in that movie that she's a large part of what makes it as entertaining as it is. And
your other real crush in that movie, not her, the kangaroo people. That's the
of course, yeah.
You love yourself a hybrid man kangaroo thing.
Yeah. It's anytime I watch Law and Order SVU, I'm thinking to myself, this is okay, but if Ice-T was just playing the Kangaroo Man from Tank Girl, it'd be so much better.
That's funny. Okay, score whores out there. Again, we love our composers, we love our orchestral works. Me and Trev have had a passion for it, I think, since we were young. So I'm going to throw it to you. What is your favorite score of F2F?
This was tough because you sprang this one on me kind of late.
Yeah.
And I really had a tough time with this. So I was actually going back and like listening to some selections from different ones, and like because like when I'll just say like so this isn't my choice, but when you first said it to me, the first thing that popped in my head was the Paul Leonard Morgan Dread score, because I do listen to it a lot, and it's like this really cool like propulsive electronic score that is like perfect for that movie, and it is really cool like background music when just driving around and stuff. I definitely have used it that way. I do love that score, but ultimately I love a good classic score, and I love a theme, and I love just a big orchestra score and something that like just swells and makes your heart grow, and you can get into like the heroism of it. And
Vacation.
So Vacation. Yep, you got it. No, a Dylan Dog, Dead of Night. Going through this again, maybe if I had more time to think about this wouldn't be number one, but this is a great score, and I feel very, very happy putting it at number one, and that is James Horner's score for The Rocketeer. I just think, just an incredible score for a pretty incredible movie, in my opinion. Some dated effects and everything, but still one of the best, slept on superhero movies of all time. A movie that deserves more eyes on it than it has already. I know it's a cult film, but come on, it needs to be more than that. And James Horner's score is a big part of that for me. Just ultimate classic Hollywood sound, and just nails the emerging hero origin, piece of the movie. Love James Horner in general, but I think this is like a real like knock out of the park for him.
It's funny that you picked a James Horner score, because I watched a movie yesterday, and James Horner did the score for it. And I immediately recognized like the Irish motifs that he was doing, especially in the 90s, leading up to Titanic and all that. And then it got me thinking. I was like, oh man, James Horner, Titanic. And that's when I texted you saying, hey, we should have a favorite score. That's so funny that you picked the James Horner one. And he was the reason that it like reminded me to tell you. That's so crazy. My favorite score, Trev, I love motifs. I love something bombastic. I love something to listen to without even watching the movie. Something that gets you a lot of rises and falls, and it just, oh man. And I love a classic score too. So I'm picking Alan Silvestri's score for Van Helsing. Mm-hmm. I know you hate that movie, and that's totally fine. Go listen to that episode, listeners. We have a little bit of a debate about it.
A little bit.
But yeah, that was one of our contentious ones. But that was a really fun one. But there's something that you can agree on, I hope, that score fucking rocks.
Got no problems with the score.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it is something that I can't believe that movie came out 20 years ago this year. That's insane to me. But that is something that from the start, from that movie when it came out, I had like bought the CD. I burned it to my iPod at the time. It's survived generations of Apple products. And the Van Helsing score is something that I listen to this day. 20 years. It's a fucking badass score, and gets you hyped, and it works without watching the movie, so you don't have to watch it ever again.
Thank God.
Okay. Biggest surprises.
This was tough because what I realized is doing this, like when we decided to do the 100th episode, I brought this up early on as kind of a category. What's our biggest surprise? And going through the list, I was kind of bummed. And like I said, I've been having a great time doing this show, and it's still fun, and I'm looking forward to 100 more episodes. But I haven't had the kind of surprise yet that I was hoping I would have, to be a movie like that I thought for sure I would just like absolutely hate and ended up absolutely loving. I wouldn't say that's necessarily happened yet. My surprises are kind of more on the smaller scale. Like, you're going to get so mad when I say this, but one of mine would be like, I didn't hate Solo, after you telling me for sure I would, and so many people telling me I would, and then watching it being like, I don't know, it's fine, I get, it's like whatever,
Yeah.
It's not like I loved it, but I was like, I don't know why everyone's so angry about this. I think he's actually a good Han Solo. I think, I thought Donald Glover was fun. I thought the movie was fine, Mm-hmm. And I kind of in the same realm, like, that would say that for like Get Smart, a movie I avoided for like a really long time because I love the show and I was so sure it would be bad. But then I ended up kind of liking it, you know. And then the other one I wrote down, and this is like so small scale because this is nowhere near one of my favorite movies. But I was trying to think, like, is there anything in here where I had like kind of like no like expectation, ended up kind of liking it? And for me, honestly, the closest one I could get to, and I know this is one I definitely liked more than you, but was the rhythm section with Blake Lively.
Oh, that's funny.
A movie no one's gonna think about, but like in the years to come. But a movie that if you remember, I ended up kind of liking, and even like walked away from it being like, you know what, I think I actually might end up buying that, and it kind of made me want to read like the rest of the books because we're not going to get the sequels. And I definitely I was like more taken with that than a lot of people were, and actually kind of dug it. So like those are my surprises. They're kind of smaller scale.
Sure.
If I had to pick one of them, I'd say like for me the most pleasant surprise, as much as it is like you could consider pleasant surprise, given that I probably won't watch this movie again. But still, I am happy that Get Smart was much better than I thought it would be, and that I didn't feel like it shit on a show I loved so much. And I was like, oh, okay, actually, I think they did an okay job with that.
Totally. I'm very similar with you too. Looking back at the list and trying to gather my thoughts, nothing, gobsmacked me in a certain way. But a couple surprises like Miami Vice being as awesome as it is after years of people telling me it's dog shit. That was a nice surprise. Streets of Fire coming out of nowhere fast for
Nice.
me was what do you? But the two that were more, I guess, meandering surprises. One was The Last Witch Hunter being a totally enjoyable fantasy film, and totally okay. And I expected to just like scream about it, but there was something about it that it was like a little charming that Vin Diesel finally got to make his fantasy movie that he's always wanted to make, and it was just one of those like, okay, I could watch another one of those. But the other one, surprisingly, was the A-Team not being as good as I remembered it. That was probably the biggest surprise, because that was a movie that I know I saw in theaters, and I know I agonized on buying the Blu-ray for many years. I thought I owned it for a long time. And then when I sat down to watch with my girlfriend, I think I apologized to her. I was like, this movie fucking sucks. And I swear, man, because I was like, oh yeah, this is the one. I was like, this is a good one. I'm excited. Man, we get to revisit the A-Team after all these years. And I felt really stupid watching that one. So that was my biggest surprise.
That is one of the fun things with the show, though, is also we get to do these like revisits, and come back to I have an inverse one of that. Like if you remember, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe we have to watch The Wolfman again. I hated that so much when I saw it in the theater, and then we did it, and I was like, oh, I actually think this is okay. Like
Totally.
I kind of like some of this. The effects are awesome, and like it's got some great gore, and like why did I hate this so much? So yeah, it does happen where like. As someone once said, I've stolen this. I don't remember where I heard it, but it's I've run with it so many times. Is like the movies don't change, but you do. So it's a lot of times it's worth revisiting movies at different points in your life because you might feel differently about them. And there's definitely been movies that my relationship with them has changed over time. Which is all to say, I think for episode 200, you and I should rewatch Maximum Ride and see how you feel about it.
Oh my god, that'd be great. Okay. Let's give a couple of awards out other than just our favorites, okay? So we did the homework and we found out who the most recurring director is out of all these films. Trev doesn't know this yet. I looked after this one. I looked after the most recurring director and the most recurring writer, and then Trev looked at the most recurring actor and actress. So, most recurring director, Trev. Who do you think it is? Because it's a 4-way tie. So I have 4 directors here that did 2 episodes each.
Okay, so we haven't got to a 3 yet.
We haven't, and this is what's so fun about... Actually, you know what? I was so impressed with how we programmed the show. And while I was looking and trying to go through the letterbox lists and try to kind of curate who was who... it just shows how good we are at programming these things. Like, we didn't do 7 movies of this guy or 6 movies of this director. We really planned it out proper that, there wasn't a lot of recurring conversations, if that makes sense.
Well, I know one of them. One of them just popped in my head because I just mentioned one of his movies. And in fact, I just gave one of the other movie an award.
Which is crazy.
Joe Johnston.
Yeah.
Who did The Rocketeer and The Wolfman. Yeah.
Yes, which is hilarious that you just mentioned that. It's nuts. So Joe Johnston, Rocketeer, Wolfman, Harold Zwart, The Karate Kid, and Mortal Instruments, City of Bones.
Wow.
A favorite of ours.
A wild filmography. If it was just those two, even.
The Wachowskis, who did Speed Racer and Jupiter Ascending, which was hilarious. Me and Trev just recently watched the new Beverly Hills Cop movie on Netflix. Both of us a fan of it, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And they have a really funny gag about Jupiter Ascending, which was just perfect.
Jupiter Ascending was worth it existing now just for that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Peter Berg, Hancock and Battleship.
I forgot about Hancock. Yeah.
So it was just funny. And then also, another thing that I noticed while looking at all this, we're going to see a lot more of these guys.
Yeah, and in fact, there's another director that you and I know is going to end up maybe being like the clear winner here. But yeah. Crazy. And not one anyone would probably expect, but one we know.
No. Okay, most recurring writer, Trev. I was gonna painstakingly go through each movie and try to find with Excel sheets and the abacus and I'm like Charlie Day with that meme from Always Sunny of like connecting the dots to try to find the right writer. But you know what? There's only one Wimmer here.
Wimmy.
Kurt Wimmer. He wrote Salt, Ultraviolet, and the Thomas Crown Affair, plus many, many more that are in our future. So I decided, I hope it's okay with your blessing, this is the Wimmer Award.
That's fine, yeah.
And I think he's the start of it. He's the dread test of this award.
And Kurt what's
Wimmer,
interesting is that alone shows like what the breadth of this show can be. Because you mentioned he did it for us. For just at this point, he's written Salt, Thomas Crown Affair, and Ultraviolet. 2 movies you and I both really like, and 1 movie we despise. Yeah.
Starring your girl.
Yeah.
He is, and he's still getting work. He's still powering through those scripts. All the power to him. I mean, you got to get paid, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, as Chris said, he kind of left on me to figure out the most recurring actor and actress. And like you, Chris, I thought about like actually feeding this all into Excel and really breaking it down, but ultimately ended up just kind of eyeballing it. And I wanted to be fair. I don't know about fair, but I decided to kind of go like mostly like kind of above the line talent, right? There might be some 14th build day player who's in like a bunch of these, but that wasn't important to me. I was looking at like the name actors. And I'm just going to start with actress because this was instantly obvious and easy, and there's no like question about it. There's only one actress who had a 2-month theme dedicated to her, and was like above one of the main talents in 4 movies, and that is of course, as we said, Mila Jovovich. We looked at Fifth Element, Ultraviolet, Three Musketeers, and Hellboy, the Hellboy reboot, of course, which she was the villain in. So this is what was striking to me though, Chris, is I was trying to see like, okay, well, who's her competition here, right? Is there any competition? And there wasn't. And ultimately that's what made me realize, wow, even doing this award speaks to what you and I often talk about how it's really shitty that in Hollywood actresses bear the brunt of these failures more than actors do. Right? Like you can just look at our movies and see how if you're an actress and you're in like 1, God forbid, 2 high profile failures, you're not going to get a chance to be in any more. And yet I have, let me see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 actors who have been in at least 3 of these movies. You know? So that's like the if you're a man in Hollywood, you can keep failing, but if you're a woman and you're not married to a director who's going to keep hiring you, like Mila Jovovich, or you're making like kind of lower budgeted movies, like she's not in like the MCU kind of level stuff. You have a little bit of a harder time with it. But yeah, she was the clear winner there.
Cool.
So, Chris, first I'm just going to rattle off some actors who all have been in 3 movies, okay? And then I'll get into the higher echelon. So, just a few actors who have been in 3 failure franchise movies: Mark Strong, Russell Crowe, Ray Stevenson, Jaimin Hansu, Chris Hemsworth, and Liam Neeson. And that then, so they were all been in 3. I could go list their movies, but heck, you the listeners can do the work. You go watch, we'll figure it out, listen to the episodes. Next up, there's 3 more actors left in my list here, and I'm gonna talk about like why I think we have to be careful with how, because all of these actors are for 4, but it would be really cheating to say it's a 3-way tie, and that is because one of them is Clint Howard, and Clint Howard has been in Evil Speak, The Rocketeer, Cat in the Hat, and Solo. But I'm actually going to eliminate him because he's like very, very briefly in The Rocketeer, Cat in the Hat, and Solo. Obviously, he's the lead in Evil Speak, but otherwise, as is often the case with Clint Howard, he just makes these like brief appearances, especially in like the something like Solo, where he's just there because it's a Ron Howard movie and he always pops up in Ron Howard movies.
Yeah.
So that leads us to our 2 real winners. And again, here, I'm going to give the trophy to one of them, but I just want to say the 2 actors left are actually really, really similar. These are like 2 actors of like, I'd say equal clout and talent. These 2 actors are actually often compared to one another. And that is, of course, Max von Sydow and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
God damn it.
Now, here's the thing. So they've both been in 4, right? But then I was looking and I was like, well, I want to give this award to somebody. And I got to be honest here, as much as we would love to, like, because of our just annoyance with him, and don't worry, I think he's going to end up being our clear winner because we still got plenty more Dwayne Johnson movies to come. But the 4 I have listed for him are Get Smart, Baywatch, Black Adam, and Gem and the Holograms. But if you remember, it's kind of just archival footage of him in Gem and the Holograms. Right. So we're going to take that out and say he's actually only been in 3, which means our winner, and there's still an important caveat here, but one to me that's not as much of a deal breaker. Our winner is the great Max von Sydow, who is in Flash Gordon, Judge Dredd, the Ridley Scott Robin Hood, and The Wolfman. Now, the important distinguishing moment here is he's only in the director's cut of The Wolfman, but that's the version that is available on Blu-ray, and I think still on some streaming services. So I think that counts. And so to me, the great Max von Sydow, who is an actor who just started, especially later on in life, he was like, you know what? I like working. I will do anything. So it's kind of no surprise that he popped up quite often in here. And you know what? That's fine because I think we've said in every one of those episodes, he's the kind of guy, he shows up and you go like, oh, okay, well, at least there's going to be one good performance in this. Because, even in a shit movie, you're always happy to see Max von Sydow.
It's a real shame that he's dead and can't listen to this episode. And
I'm sure this would be his highest, honor.
Does he have any Oscars?
I don't think he does. No.
Wow. So literally, we're at the top of the game.
Yeah.
That's funny. Wow. I did not expect him. That's for sure. That's for sure. I thought maybe you're going to name Will Smith purely because he has he's in 2 movies, Wild Wild West and Hancock.
Yeah.
But he also is an illustration in the movie Men in Black International. So I thought maybe
I don't even remember that. I wiped that movie from my.
Yeah, he's like a cartoon illustration on the wall of like a Hall of Fame type of bullshit that they look at. Anyway. Okay. We're wrapping up soon here, but I just got to say we have lots of movies on the way. As I said, 278 movies as of now are on that list with at least 120 movies I've never seen. We have lots to go, and Hollywood keeps cranking these bad boys out. But Trev, what are you most excited for going forward? Is there a title or even a theme month that you're looking forward to?
Well, some of the themes we already talked about, I'm excited about. I'm excited to do. We already did Pulp Frustration. We've got like a second edition of that coming up, which we're actually going to call this time Pulp Friction, which is looking at some more of like the pulp hero based movies. That will be looking at Doc Savage, Legend of the Lone Ranger from 1981, the Gore Verbinski Lone Ranger, and Legend of Tarzan. So I'm like a huge fan of like this pulp stuff, and in that same vein, the Lamentations of Their Winter, the Robert E. Howard stuff. I'm looking forward to that. But honestly, like more so, like when I really kind of scroll through this, I hate some of this. I hate because I'm kind of giving away my feelings about the movies. But whatever, like you already know these ones anyways, and like by the time we get to them, it won't matter anyways. But there's some like horror movies in here I definitely dig that I'm like really excited for you to see because I want to hear what you think of them. Something like Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon, which I think is like a really like underrated still to this day, like slasher comedy. And I'm really eager to see like what you think of that, or something like, I don't know if you've seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil, but that's like an episode I'm definitely like looking forward to doing. So yeah, there's some theme months coming up, but there's some. This is gonna sound so weird, but I was trying to find, is there any movie in here that for like years I've been meaning to watch, and I just was kind of like at a certain point, like, nah, I'll just wait. And this is so dumb, but if there's one in here that there's a movie I've always been curious about, and I'm like, I don't know why. Here's what I'll say: I'm oddly optimistic about this movie, and I don't even know why. And that is Monster Trucks. There's a movie that, for whatever reason, I like Jay Levy. I thought there's something about the trailer where I was like, wow, that looks like the kind of movie I liked when I was a kid that they don't make anymore.
Sure.
I remember the story of that was like, it was made because like some executive at the studio, his like 6-year-old son or something, was like, I think there should be a movie with an alien in a monster truck. And there's like, okay, we'll do that. And I was like, I love that, So I don't know. It's probably going to be a big piece of shit, but I've always wanted to see it. And at this point, I'm just waiting because we're going to do it. But I don't know. There's something, I'm just oddly optimistic about Monster Trucks. So,
cool.
So don't break my heart, Monster Trucks, when we finally get there.
That's so funny. I love that. I love that. Monster Trucks has been in and out of a couple themes that we've already done. Theme month, sorry, that was in, and then we'd replace it. So, who knows? At the end of this episode, Trev,
I know
we could get it.
Yeah.
So I'm most excited for. There's really only one for me that I'm most excited for. I have grown to love this IP, this property in its new modern day form. I don't know anything about the property other than the 2 new Villeneuve movies. But I am most excited to finally watch the Lynch version of Dune. I really want to get to Dune. I told you when we watched when part 1 came out, I said we can't do Dune until at least part 2's out. Because I just do not want to be spoiled for things. Seeing that we're probably going to get part 3. What do you think? Am I allowed to watch it? Or do I can watch it at this point?
Yeah, it's just what you've seen now. It's just the first book. Yeah.
Good. Okay. So Dune is my most anticipated or most excited. Just honestly, purely for comparison's sake. Really.
Yeah. Some might say if we were smarter podcasters, we would have done that episode when Dune 2 was out and all the rage. But oh well.
What did we do instead?
I don't know. We were doing some dumb theme month, I'm sure.
Oh my god. Okay, what are you most dreading?
There's a lot, but I'd say like ultimately, well, so first of all, and I know you hate me for this, but
sure.
One of the things, because I put it in the list and you were so mad that I put it in the list, but you know what? I already suffered through it once. I'm going to have to suffer through it twice, and you're only going to have to see it the one time. I'm dreading having to rewatch Danzig's Death Rider and the House of Vampires.
Oh my god.
Which was a really, not that I didn't expect it, but it was a rough watch, and I can't believe I'm going to do it again for the sake of the show.
It's funny because my most dreaded is basically what you're saying. All I wrote was really any junky D-grade horror movie that Trev tries to sneak on the list.
I think though ultimately, like what I'm really dreading, and it's funny because like it's such a linchpin of our show, but we haven't done as many as you'd think, and and that's why it sucks because we've still got so many. I'm always dreading having to return to this world of like these bad 2000s YA adaptations.
Yeah.
Because they're just kind of all the same. And that's the thing is like, it's like tempting, I know you and I have even talked about like, should we just burn off a bunch of them like with a theme, do 2 months of them. But it's like, whenever you watch like a couple of these in a row, it's like so soul sucking. I'm like, who knows? Maybe there'll be a diamond in the rough here, but I can't say I'm excited to watch Beautiful Creatures and The Fifth Wave and Fallen. What else we got here? I'm just scrolling through. Inkheart, even though I love me some Brendan Fraser, Alex Rider, Operation Stormbreaker, Aragon. I mean, like I said, I don't know. Oh God, like I'm never looking forward to those, but we still got so many of them to do.
Yeah, we have a lot of movies to do. I mean, again, this is what's kind of great about like wrapping up here, but like this, what's kind of cool about the concept of this show. And again, all the credit is to you. Like you came up with the concept. And I think we were just starting, or you were starting to get so like, man, there's a lot of movies that are really putting carts before horses more than ever before in kind of cinema history in the last like 20 years. And then as we, continue this podcast, we realize, well, for all of film history, they've been doing it. They've just become...
It doesn't stop, right?
It doesn't stop.
This year alone, we've seen Madam Web, The Fall Guy, and The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
All added to the list.
Yep. Yeah. It's like, so it just doesn't end,
And that's why, like, we wanted to touch on this a little bit, but honestly, most of this conversation we kind of had during the Artemis Fowl episode, if I'm being honest, about like the state of the industry.
Yeah.
And I think this industry is a stupid one.
Yeah.
and they really don't learn from their mistakes. So like I just said, this failing to franchise has been happening since the beginning of just Hollywood product,
Yeah.
And we've been curating it and talking about it, and it's just so funny to see the cyclical nature of things. Okay, well, they tried to imitate the Batman 89 way of doing superhero movies, or even just the vibe of it, dark and gritty and noirish, and fail. And then they went through after Harry Potter. They were doing the YA adaptations. So many of them in the 2000s and 2010s. Fail. And now we just got through the superhero stuff that's going on. And now the entire superhero concept seems to be imploding. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that when something crumbles, Hollywood tries to do it over here. And they really are the definition of insanity. Trying to do the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. And it's been a wild thing to witness. It is a little soul crushing at times. Like, we obviously still love movies, and I think because we can talk about them in this way, it makes it fun that we can either find a diamond in the rough, or we can shit on Green Lantern some more. You know what I mean? But I don't know if I'm like oh my God, the sky is falling. Because I feel like that happens every decade or so anyway in this industry.
Oh, we also had Argyle this year. Now do you feel like the sky is falling?
Yeah, never mind. Cut that.
No, to kind of echo what you said, I actually want to say, and this, I hope this makes sense. I'm going to try and verbalize this as well as it makes sense in my head. But I actually feel like right now in general, somewhat optimistic about the state of cinema, which is weird because I know this year seems pretty rough, but that's largely because of the strikes last year, which left us with this like really depleted, movie slate in general this year. So it feels like this year's not quite up to snuff with like last year in terms of like really, strong movies coming out. There's obviously been some bangers here and there, but it just feels weaker. But because of the collapse of the MCU, and because, you see now like even the collapse of like the streaming model, and studios kind of having to reevaluate what they're doing and how they're making money, I actually think we're starting to see a little bit of a pivot away from like the superhero stuff into a more varied kind of, the studios are taking like different chances, and we're getting like a little bit more like original properties again. So I actually find myself somewhat more optimistic about movies in general right now than I was a couple years ago. I'll say that. Now, that doesn't mean, as you just said, that we're going to stop getting failed franchise starters, which would be hell for us. Well, I mean, we're set for the next few years, but but we're still going to get them. But what I do hope, and I think you even see that with the movies we just mentioned, right? So I said that we've already got 4 this year, right? And only one of them is a superhero one. And I think that to me would be like the biggest bummer, is if for the next few years, still every failed franchise starter that you and I might have to cover was just another superhero movie. Mm-hmm. But I would at least like it to get back to where the failed franchise starters are unique ideas, or at least a little bit more varied, right? So for however much I might be dreading having to watch Argyle, or however I'm just kind of like ambivalent about the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and then you throw in something like The Fall Guy, which actually I really want to see, and the only reason I'm like hemming and hawing about watching it is because do I want to just save it for the show, But at least those are 3 like. Those are different, right? They're not superhero movies. They're action, they're kind of singular action properties. And, you and I have already done some movies from the 80s, and like whether you liked them all, I know like remember how much you loved Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai? As much as you hated it, at least
Hey, did you notice it? It didn't make it on the bottom 5?
I know. I know. I'm very happy. But you have to. At least that was a wild swing of a movie, right?
Yes.
And then something like Streets of Fire, which is just like, I can't believe they even thought this would be a franchise. That's what I'd like to see a return to. Is like the movies you and I have to cover in years to come. I hope they're not just, they tried to do another DC or Marvel movie and it failed. It's more like they came up with a really weird IP to exploit, or they just had a really strange original idea and it didn't work. That's the pivot I want to see. Since Hollywood's never going to stop making failures, I hope they're at least more interesting failures, and I genuinely think that's going to be the case. I know that's the weirdest compliment in the world, but for your and I's sake, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That's perfectly said. Perfectly said. So that's kind of, that's a look back at our podcast. For everybody who's been there since the start or we've gained along the way, thanks for listening. I mean, we really do our best here, and we want to make it entertaining for whatever size our audience is. If you pop in every now and then, or you're a loyal listener for every single episode every 2 weeks, it's very cool of you. And just to know that you're giving us 90 minutes to 2 hours of your time, we want to make sure it's a good product, and we want to make sure you're having a good time.
And it's really fun for us, and we enjoy doing it. And if I could make one plea to everyone listening, it's that, can you please all go see Craven, so it's a huge hit, and then make a sequel, and we don't have to do it, and I never have to watch it.
Okay, I saw this on one of our Instagram posts. We had a loyal listener say that he was disappointed that we weren't going to do Summer Surprise this year. So any newcomers, every summer we like to randomize the list of our movies and pick the next few just through the randomizer to make it fun. Because you know what? Sometimes it's tiring to make these theme months.
Yeah, and there's some movies that we just we're not rushing to get to, and really this is probably the only way they're going to come up soon.
Exactly. So to that listener, if you're still with us, I hope you're alive. But we're doing it right now. The next 3 episodes, it's an abridged version of Summer Surprise, but 3 episodes. I have all of the titles here in the generator.
Ones that aren't already set for picked themes coming up.
Correct. Yeah, we eliminated those ones out, and so here we go. So the next episode, episode 101, we're looking at Leon.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Very happy about that.
Leon the Professional, another Luc Besson movie, director of my favorite movie, Fifth Element. A totally non-problematic filmmaker. And a film that's not controversial at all. Great.
Yeah, looking forward to it. That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, episode 102, we're looking at...
Oh, God. The laugh always worries me.
We're looking at the Child's Play reboot.
Oh, no. Okay.
So you're going to have to rewatch that. Yeah. So that one's not as fun. But, hey, you like Batman Mask of the Phantasm, so you do like Mark Hamill playing voice work. So
This is true.
Yeah. Okay, episode 103, we are looking at... Well... this is timely, actually. This is timely. This year, Trev, what Tim Burton movie's coming out this year?
Oh, we got Beetlejuice.
But what we got for F2F, we got Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that does work out, actually.
That's kind of nice. That's pretty sweet. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've never seen that. And that's our other crush is in that movie, right?
Yes,
What's her
my
name?
number 2 crush, yes.
Yeah, Vesper Lind herself. Yeah. Okay, and episode 104... Right? We're doing 3?
You just did.
That was it.
Yeah.
I'm keeping that in. Okay, great. So those are the 3. We got Leon, then we got the Child's Play remake, reboot, and then Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children.
Hey, and again, 3 totally different genres.
Cool.
So,
yeah,
cool.
I like Summer Surprise for this. Mm-hmm. Last year's Summer Surprise was a little too long, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and it was a little rough last year.
It was a little rough.
So,
So I kind of like keeping it to maybe 3, maybe 4 max, but this will be good. This will be good. That's it. That'll do it for episode 100. Personally, I just want to say, Trev, this is fun as hell. I still love doing this, and I love you, buddy. This is great. I'm very glad we met all those years ago, and crazy how that works, that you meet randomly in a lineup for Hall H at Comic-Con, and then you're stuck with me for 10 years.
I know. And I spent, I went so long, too, being like, I'm just going to make sure I never have a Canadian friend, just for that. Nobody from Canada. And then here I am, not only with a Canadian friend, but even doing a bi-weekly podcast with them. Damn you, Comic-Con line.
You're lucky you have a Canadian friend, because you might have to leave that country.
This is true. I might be coming to you for asylum soon.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Okay.
No,
I love you too, and it's been great, and it's kind of fun that over the course of the show, even you and I both, our lives have changed a lot, and we both had kind of big life changes, and everything, and it's fun that I love that every 2 weeks we get to hop on here and talk to each other about it. So to many more to come.
Yeah, for sure. Follow us at F2FPod. That's at F2, the number 2 FPod on all the socials. Like us there, like us everywhere. Rate, review, whatever you do. A star rating would be great. And just join the tribe and hit that subscribe. And continue on with us amongst many more episodes, and especially Summer Surprise.